Okay, it's 10:30. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here for our youth panel. It's going to be the coolest part of your day, I'm pretty sure. My name is Vanessa Venturini. I work for URI Cooperative Extension, and that is the community engagement arm of the university. I coordinate both the Master Gardener program and a new program called Food Recovery for Rhode Island, which is all about bringing people together to reduce food waste and increase access to food. And if you're interested in that, we've got another class on it later on and a handout up front if you want to join our fall class. But today is not about me. It is about the incredible folks that you see up here in our panel. We are really interested, I think, at this point in the world in thinking about community-led change. And all of the individuals up here in our panel are exactly the folks doing that. So they are the people who are most affected by this change that they're causing, and they are leading this change that they are causing. And I think that's really where, you know, we get a movement and we get some long-lasting results. So I was really inspired when I heard from a few of the panelists. They were actually on our conference planning team. And I was like, oh my goodness, we need to bring the youth voice to this conference. And so we're so excited to have multiple high schools represented here today. But I know we have a few high schools in the audience. So do we have any folks from Prout here? Woo! Prout! And Charahoe, I believe, is also here. Yeah, represent. Awesome. So good to have you. And we've got a few schools and individuals joining us on Zoom. We're pressing the technology to its limits today. So we're hybrid. And we will be recording this session. And I also wanted to mention that there's a handout up front that the wonderful Kim is holding. It has a number of resources. If you're inspired by this panel and you want to start some composting or food recovery at your school, there are so many organizations who want to collaborate with you. So you can grab a handout from Kim's table. And there are also words of wisdom from our panelists that we're going to leave you with today. And I will email those to anyone who is registered on our Zoom as well. Okay, so enough about me. I am so excited to share from you, share the various panelists. And as I introduce you, you could raise your hand. From Barrington High School, we have two sophomores, Sabine, Cladis, and Emma Pautz. Woo! A sophomore at East Bay Met, we've got Bella Quiroa. Quiroa. Awesome. And then we've got two students who are from the green team, which is Groundwork, Rhode Island's youth group. But they are, Bormey Caroge is a senior at Classical High School. And Jaylyn McNeil, who is a senior at Charette High School. And I was already trying to recruit them all. I'm like, you want to come and be my intern in the future? I mean, I'm so excited to have you all hear from them about basically the next portion is we're going to hear from each group about how they started composting or food recovery efforts at their school in their own words. And we'll start with our group from Barrington High School. Sabine and Emma, take it away.
Hi, my name is Emma Pautz, and I'm Sabine Cladis. We're sophomores at Barrington High School. Oh, I don't think it's that. I think it's like off. Oh. Put it really close to the face. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Today we'll be discussing composting and how we've been integrating it into our high school and how students across Rhode Island can do the same. Over the summer of 2022, Sabine and I became interested in composting in our community. We researched both problems and current policy. Through that research, we learned of an ordinance that would mandate composting in schools, starting January 1st, 2023. We wanted our school to follow this mandate, so we began to research ways that our school could best implement composting. By the beginning of the school year, we had met with our principal and proposed our idea, and we began coordinating this with our high school, with our environmental club. Originally, we wanted to have a compost organizer that would, with specific dividers that would make it clear where composting, recycling, and waste would go. However, this plan needed to be altered to meet the requests of administration. However, While it may have taken a lot of time to get to the point where we could actually implement composting into our high school cafeteria, its execution provided its own challenges.
After we had received approval from our administration, we found support with our environmental club, working closely with our friends, Indy Lamb and Madeline Kaufman. Still, we had an incredibly long way to go. We had altered our plans so that rather than having organized dividers as we initially envisioned, we ended up starting with simply a few bins scattered around the cafeteria. We were in our testing stage, so to speak. Over here, you can see we had to make sure that, well, high school students, are not always the best with following instructions, especially new ones. So we were very mindful about the way that we advertised composting to the community. Over here, you can see Emma on our school news network advertising composting, and then another booth that we had at homecoming from the environmental club.
We were able to create a system of monitoring compost bins so that it became even clearer that composting was now in effect. It was the first few weeks we collected a full bucket of composting, and that has continued to be the case. We hope to get to a point where composting has become a habitual part of the students' lunch routine. Our next step will be implementing the original compost organizers that we've shown in previous slides. While the process has been difficult at times, its importance to our community has made it worthwhile, and that's why we encourage other students to start composting at their school.
Well, as you can see, there were some disagreements, but it did work out in the end. We have only been working on composting at our high school for around 6 months now, and it has been quite the learning experience. We have discovered so many various ways to pursue advocacy, especially concerning composting at our own high school. One of the first things that we learned early on is that it is perfectly okay to start out small. In fact, sometimes it's oftentimes the best method. We needed to make sure that everybody was on board. This meant we had faculty, administration, all working, helping us with this. It was important to make sure that composting was bringing us together as a community. Sometimes the advice that we were given proved instrumental, and other times it reminded us of the limitations that we had to work with. If you choose to do something at your own high school, as I know there's high schools out here, it's okay to start out small and make sure that everybody, especially your student body, is on board with what you're planning to accomplish.
A final piece of advice is one that we're still learning ourselves. We realized through this process that it will be an ongoing effort. It will constantly need to be changed and revised. And if you're wanting to pursue this, it's important to realize that it might take longer than you expect. It's important to keep focused and keep working towards your goal, even if different difficulties arise.
Beautiful. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you so much for watching. And I really hope that this helps with any composting projects that you might pursue in your future.
Beautiful job. And we'll have a chance at the very end to do some Q&A. And I love that advice. Start small. You kind of have to take the baby steps and then grow. So that's beautiful advice for, I think, starting anything new. Okay, now we are so pleased to have Bella from East Bay Met School tell us a little bit about her experience. Bella. Sure.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bella Quiroa. I am a sophomore from the East Bay Met School. And this year I've been focusing my project work on implementing composting in communities through my internship with Clean Ocean Access, which has a table over here that you guys should check out. Through this project work, I've explored how composting can better our communities by bringing us together and providing an easy way to contribute to the fight against the climate crisis. So I started my project work in October of last year when I started my internship with Clean Ocean Access. My school had started a composting program last school year, but it was inactive during this new school year. So while I was putting in the efforts to start the program up again, I also developed a presentation for my classmates so that I could teach them how to properly sort their waste. The presentation went well, but as time went on, there was an issue with students actually taking the time to sort their waste. It's easy to hear about the climate crisis and not fully grasp the situation from a simple presentation. And it's easy to brush off the efforts, especially as a high school student, but I found that being persistent helps. So it's important that the posters we put up should be detailed and accurate while not being too much. You want to have helpful information for those who are curious, but easy to take in information for those who quickly glance. Next, I would stand at the bins at the end of lunch in order to actually weigh waste to see how much waste my school was actually diverting from the landfill, but it was helpful for those who had questions at the beginning of starting the program again. And it encouraged others to actually take the time to sort their waste because I was like standing there. So my final step in the project was to organize a fundraiser so that the composting program could continue for years to come. I held the fundraiser in mid-November, and the idea was around the fact that during the Halloween season, pumpkins are produced on a massive scale, leading to about 1.3 billion tons of pumpkins being sent to landfills nationwide each year. So I wanted to collect those pumpkins from around Rhode Island and divert them from the landfill. So I created this pumpkin carving event where I had met students and students from local organizations carve pumpkins. And I also urged those students to compost their pumpkins when they were close to rotting and or send them to a local farm for animal seed, which is actually what we did. So we sent the pumpkins to West Place Animal Farm in Animal Sanctuary in Tiverton, and that finalized my project. So the challenges I faced during this project were definitely the communication aspects. It was really hard contacting so many businesses and farms around Rhode Island to look for pumpkin donations, which was a relief in the sense that we don't have many farms in Rhode Island that are mass producing pumpkins to that kind of scale, but still eventually I found places that had a lot of pumpkins for us. So with that work, I learned a lot. So let's talk about what works. I can't stress this enough, but persistence is key. You have to be persistent in this kind of work that you do in communities, especially with students. Soon it'll become habit for some, and at the very least, it'll expand their ideas at all. It's interesting, at a school that I've been helping start a compost program through my internship, the students noticed that the younger kids were doing better than the older kids. And that was indicative of the fact that those younger kids had actually started composting in elementary school, so they were already familiar with it. Secondly, it's important to be simple but informative, like I mentioned earlier. You want that helpful and accurate information for those who are curious, and the simple but memorable information for others. Lastly, you have to be patient. This kind of work takes a while, and you have to be persistent with it. It took until mid-February to get the composting program started up again at my school, so don't let it discourage you. Now let's talk about things you all should consider. Something I've realized that can be really helpful and effective is approaching your work differently. Think about unique ways to captivate people and try to have your presentation be more than that. Aim to give people new perspectives. You could do an activity, tell a story, sing a song, just try something new. Secondly, it's so important that you guys use every opportunity you have to teach about the climate crisis, even the small things. It's useful even just getting the idea of it into people's heads. For example, at the fundraiser, I shared posters about composting pumpkins and shared a bit about goats eating pumpkins. So lastly, I've been working on a project recently. On giving more resources to the Latino community in Newport to get more involved in the climate fight. So I am hopeful for the future of this project because of everything I've learned. And with that, that's the end of my presentation. So thank you all for your time.
It was so beautiful and inspiring. Thank you. I can't wait to dig in more to both of these projects that we've heard about so far. And last but not least, let's hear a little bit about what's going on with the Green Team in Providence.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jaylyn McNeil. I'm a senior at Charette. And I recently joined the Green Team this past summer, and it's been a very eye-opening experience for me. For example, I did not know what composting was a year ago, or I didn't even have the slightest idea of how to make it. But being a part of the Green Team, but now I have knowledge about compost, and knowing about it, I feel like it's something that everyone should be told about and have access to because of all the benefits. What's great about being a part of the Green Team is it isn't just an individual journey. We're all working together to accomplish the same task, which is to better our environment. We work with Harvest Cycle, another branch of Groundwork, Rhode Island, to collect food scraps from community members using the electric bike. Harvest Cycle has over 400 subscribers, and together we were able to divert 152,000 pounds of waste from the landfill each year.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bormey Caroge. I'm also a part of Groundwork Rhode Island. I'm a senior at Classical. And what we do at Groundwork, basically, for the past 3 months, for the past 4 months, we've been making compost. We have a specific recipe that we like to follow with our browns and our greens. Some people, when they're making compost, they like to use meat, dairies, vegetables, eggshells. Here at Groundwork, we don't use those because this is provided by Harvest Cycle. Basically, our recipe, it's like a lasagna. I don't like the name, but that's what they chose. We start off with leaves, then our food waste, then our wood chips, and then we just mix it up. Compost takes 8 weeks. We usually have to turn it once per week, and then we have to wait another 8 weeks for it to cure. Then we sift it, and then we give it back to our subscribers.
We refer to our kitchen scraps as the greens, which provide the nitrogen, and our browns like cardboard and wood chips and leaves are the carbon. And like Bormey said, we come back every week to turn our batches, and then we let them cure for 8 weeks.
The benefits for compost, it helps reduce food waste. Sometimes when we're collecting our food scraps from our subscribers, they like to freeze it so it doesn't go bad. But sometimes it's hard for us when we're making the compost.
For me, composting has not been that difficult because we have great leaders like Sada and Ella who first showed us how to compost. And we all work together to do different parts of the composting. Like during our process, we have some people who do the breaking down of the food, and then we have some members who help to gather leaves and wood chips.
Since Jaylyn already talked about her experience, I feel like I should share mine. I thought I knew a bit about compost and Sada told us that we were going to learn about compost. But then I realized I didn't know that much about it. It was a whole new experience for me. This is my first year with Groundwork, and it's been really amazing. Learning about compost, everything. I think it's recommended that people should start learning how to make compost because it's really beneficial for the garden, for the ecosystem, and it can reduce food waste and everything.
Not many people are very aware of the benefits of compost, especially in our neighborhoods. They aren't even aware of like what it is or that it's accessible to them. So I think it's really important that we start implementing in schools. Like Bella said, it's way easier to get younger kids involved and, you have a fresh mind. They're way more likely to be interested than high school students. Or older, we have our mindset.
It's really good if you teach young kids about compost at an early age, because once they grow up, they're gonna learn how to live a more sustainable life. And that's really good for the earth.
It's the end of our presentation.
Rhode Island College today, the United Nations in a few years. Seriously, that was really, really special and inspiring. It's now time for us to move on. We have a few minutes for questions and answers from these young leaders of today. Really, you're making change not only in your schools, but in your communities, and it's so special to see and really powerful. So are there any questions? We're actually going to be engaging both Jim and the man behind the curtain to, I guess they're switching off, and Greg to be taking questions from Zoom as well as from the room. So raise your hand and Jim will come around. Sally, Jesse, Raphael, Stone. It's an old reference. That was incredible. Oh, that was Bella's sixth grade teacher saying she found her voice and giving her a shout out. Go ahead.
Hello. Okay, great. So I heard a lot about different ages being able to learn composting and like how there's different barriers for different age groups. Like it's harder the older you are. And I'm in college right now, I go to Rick, and we do have a compost program here, but it's been pretty difficult to get people to like compost appropriately. And I'm wondering if there have been specific methods of teaching older people compared to younger people that have maybe worked a little bit better.
At Barrington High School, we've been using our local news, which is called Sunrise, and then we've been going on there, and then we also use posters.
But
All right, you wanted to switch.
okay. So at our school, we use Sunrise, which is a local like news screening, and then we also put posters around the school. However, that's not very sufficient. But recently, I was in the meeting with the environmental stewardship committee for the district, and we've been discussing solutions such as having more staffing, more adults staffing it, because other students don't perceive students as authorities, so that they aren't as inclined to follow what we're saying.
Just real quick, in addition to that, in terms of authority, I think it's important to stay assertive at that level when you're talking to older students, especially as sophomores. We have to stand up there and yell at seniors to compost, and I understand how it's very challenging to do so. The very first day of our program, nobody was listening. I stood on a chair and I yelled at them to compost. It's sometimes it just has to be done. And I think that as long as you stay assertive with younger kids, you can coddle them and you can make all these activities. But with older kids, sometimes it has to do with just laying it out flat for them and letting them know what needs to be done.
Another thing is that at the lower levels, such as in our school district at the elementary level, a lot of the people who are running the green teams or running the compost monitoring is PTO, so students are more inclined to follow them.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'd echo what was said. It's a terrific presentation. Well done, all of you. Really great. I have a couple of questions. The first is, do any of you use social media? And if so, how and what works best? It's one question. Second question is whether all of this just grinds to a halt when you go on holiday or vacation, as we say in this country. What happens to you guys? Do you keep it up during the vacation, maybe at home or whatever? And what happens to the schools that start something during the term and then along comes the vacation?
So what I use for social media, not only for compost, but for other environmental efforts is usually Facebook, which is very useful for reaching an older audience, especially what I use is the Barrington community page, which has a lot of members and there's a lot of parents there who are interested. And then another thing that I use is Instagram, and that engages a lot of young audiences. However, there's another more broad reaching resource I use, which is our local newspaper, which is Barrington Times. I'm sure that a lot of other communities have similar newspapers, and that can reach a very broad audience. As for the holidays, we recently went on a week break, and it's been difficult getting back because we have to get back into the routine. But what we do is we make sure the bins are clean before we leave, so there's not any fruit flies developing, and we just get back to it.
Another aspect of us being on break was that high school, the time you lose track of like what's in your head all the time. And so for a lot of the students, it's difficult to remember, oh, I don't just have to put all of this in the trash. This goes in recycling. This goes into compost. So it's important to just continue advertising it, continue talking about it, make sure it's something that is circulated around the school so it continues to be part of that. So obviously that comes to play over vacation. We have to just get back at that. I don't believe that there's need to produce just food in general during that time because the students are obviously away. So that entire process goes on hold.
But for example, when we were doing midterms, people weren't really having lunch in school, and we were busy taking midterms and everything was off schedule. During that time, we just paused composting. We had the compost bin still out, but we just weren't monitoring it. And then we just made sure to empty anything that was in there.
Great. Any other responses on social media?
Yeah, I actually have an Instagram for my school, which is like required because my school has like internships. So we're out at internships 2 days of the week. So I have to have like some way to document what I'm doing, and that's through an Instagram. And it's actually been helpful for networking. And I found that videos are a really good way to get like more interaction on your page. I've seen that people from organizations have followed my page. Although it hasn't brought me anywhere yet, it's a really great way to kind of network and branch out your work. It's my name, Bella Quiroa, which I don't know. Oh, it's like on there. You can see Bella Quiroa, and then underscore, I think. Yeah. Underscore after the name. Yeah.
We got two questions from the chat. The first one is, it seems like the younger kids could learn from lower grades, could visit the older school, the high school and stuff to see those kinds of compost programs. And maybe the students from both kinds of schools could learn together. Anybody got any comments on that?
As I mentioned before, I was in the environmental stewardship committee for the district last week, and we definitely discussed that, and I think that's something that our district might look into doing.
And the next question.
Oh, this was specifically for Jaylyn. What was your proudest moment with this project?
My proudest moment during this project has definitely been my involvement in everything. I feel like I've been very open-minded, and I've been really trying to get my friends involved and everybody that I know. So it just really makes me proud of myself to see how far I've come since like freshman year and everything. I'm just very proud of my growth.
That's awesome. And you're considering potentially majoring in something related to this, right? So does everybody else want to share like their proudest moment?
Well, I've been doing environmental efforts since I was in 7th grade. And when I was in middle school, it was very small scale, just like telling my principal that you have to do something. But I feel like doing this has kind of been an accumulation of everything that I've done so far, and I'm excited to see where this takes me.
I only more recently started to get involved with environmental efforts. But I think that my proudest moment was probably standing on that chair. I think it was the moment that it kind of like hit me, the power that our youth voices have, and how, as young adults, oftentimes we go out into the world with these deferential attitudes towards adults, towards advocacy in general. And I think that like standing up in that chair and like yelling at my student body really kind of solidified the kind of power that we really have. And that's why we really are greatly encouraging any youth voices to speak up and to pursue climate action.
I'll follow you wherever you go. Okay, how about you?
So I don't have any moment in particular that I'm proudest of, but I think this whole experience of me really going out there looking for opportunities to work in communities has made me proud, because I've never really been the kind of person to go for opportunities or be like a go-getter in that sense. So just overall, I'm really proud of myself for that. And like, I would say thank you to like my mentor and my advisor, Eleanor, if you're still watching, hi. They really have pushed me to kind of do this work. And even this panel, I would not have imagined myself doing something like this. So that's what I'm proud of.
I feel like my proudest moment would be joining Groundworks, because if it wasn't for Groundworks, I wouldn't be as social as I am or joining new opportunities. And because of that, I am the person who I am today. I feel like that's just my proudest moment in general.
Beautifully said. We have a question back in the audience, back live.
Hi, my name is Chris Beeling and I work for the Environmental Protection Agency. So this is just awesome to hear all your stories. I work with food waste diversion in the 6 New England states. So it's great to see Rhode Island and the youth here. But a couple of things, a couple of shout outs. We have a few grants in Rhode Island. The Rhode Island Schools Recycling Club, who's working with K through 12 schools on food waste diversion. So shout out to them. They have a great program and they have a session later today. So if anyone's interested in pursuing that, please check in with them. I'm here today talking about Institute of Local Self-Reliance, which really jives with what you guys are saying. They are trying to grow community composting and composting for community, and they have a certification and a training program that we're offering for free. So if anyone's really interested in getting into more community composting issues, please see me. And I have a session this afternoon too, because I think it would really behoove some of you to take that next step. And it's all about building community. So I'm so proud of you all. Thank you. Oh, and Groundworks.
Hi, thanks everyone. That was awesome. My question is mostly for Jaylyn and Bormey. I also just wanted to clarify that they work for Groundwork. They're like excellent youth employees. And so they're like doing that as a job while also being seniors in high school, which is so impressive. And yeah, I just wanted to ask you guys if you've brought anything that you've learned at Groundwork back into your life at school.
What I brought from Groundwork is to always advocate for yourself and to learn to speak up.
Me, I've definitely started to be more mindful of my waste management and just things like before I never used to bring a water bottle with me anywhere I went. Now I bring it literally everywhere, and just being more conscious of the things that I'm doing and how it affects my environment. That was my biggest takeaway from Groundwork, and definitely trying to encourage my peers to also do the same.
Stay hydrated. Water is important.
Now, words of wisdom.
Hi, I'm Caroline and I'm from the Pautz School. I might have missed it during your guys' presentation, but can you tell us a little bit more about what you actually do with the compost? Do you keep it and use it at the school, or do you bring it somewhere else? Just kind of talking about that process a little bit.
Let's start with Barrington.
So I know that there are some, wow. I know that there are some schools that are able to compost on site. For us, at least, what we do is we have currently, I don't know how the system will change in the future, but we have bins set up around the cafeteria in typical spots where students will dispose of the compost. At the end of the day, Emma and I or one of our peers from Environmental Club will go out and we will empty the bins into a separate bin, which is then going to be composted at a site which is called the Barrington Farm School. It's about a mile off of our campus. And that's basically how the process works. The bins are cleaned about once a week. And typically it's fairly effective, although it's only just starting up.
Is there any like transport? How does it get from school to Barrington Farm School?
So Tim Faulkner runs the Barrington Farm School and he uses a bike to get from the farm school to Barrington High School. And he picks up the compost and bikes back to the farm school. And we've visited the site there and I've also volunteered there quite a bit during the summer. And they have like a big on-site compost and they use it for their farm.
You should really see this bike. It's something else.
These days, killing it.
So at my school and with my internship, my internship, Clean Ocean Access, has a program, the Healthy Soils, Healthy Seas initiative that my mentor is head of. And with that, they have a partnership with a compost hauling company called Black Earth Compost. And with that partnership, I believe about 6 schools are currently composting, 8 schools are currently composting with Black Earth. And what Black Earth does is we'll have the compost at the school, and that compost bin that's inside the school will go out to a compost bin that's larger outside of the school, that's picked up like a garbage truck by this the trucks that the Black Earth has, and it's brought to a facility where they have this like massive composting like process where they like are able to compost a lot. And yeah, that's how it's done.
Cool. Can you tell us a little bit about how it works at Harvest Cycle? I think you kind of covered that, but maybe we could just do like an overview.
Basically, this is our first year at Groundwork working with compost, so we don't know much about it. But in May or April, we were going to sift our compost and send it back to our subscribers. I don't know much info about that, but
I'm sure if you have any more questions, Ella would be happy to answer them.
yes.
It's another community scale compost spot over at Community Gardens. And it's bike powered pickups around residential spots, and they're growing a lot of new drop off spots in libraries and other community spots. So that's the quick overview of how that works. It's just taking forever. One more question, Jim?
Any more questions from the floor?
Okay,
Over here.
yeah. I got 2 more here coming in off the chat.
Okay, well, let's go with Jim and then Greg.
Kind of a side question. Is Barrington Farm School a public school?
Barrington Farm School is just a farm. It's just like a farm that's very close to a school. It's not like an education facility.
It's a nonprofit. I know I was confused at first too.
Yeah.
Back to Zoom
Greg?
world.
Okay, the first one is a pretty quick one. The person asks, can anyone compost, or do you specifically need bins or special tools? Anybody want to answer that?
So it depends, because at Barrington Farm School, they basically put all the food scraps into a pile and then they turn it. But you probably need a pretty big pitchfork for that. But I mean, there's a bunch of different approaches that you can take.
Yeah, there's various ways to compost, and sometimes it doesn't even have to be you specifically being hands-on. You can drop your compost off at some local farms like the Barrington Farm School, as we've mentioned. In terms of something that's, I think, going to probably be more popular at some point is like composting at home, like actually I have one myself, like turning the composting yourself. And I'm not exactly sure if you need any specific material for that. But yeah, at home composting or dropping it off at site are both very good ways to compost.
Beautiful answer. And the next question, then we'll end with final thoughts.
Last question from here was, any thought to having a statewide student leadership group to advance these efforts? It sounds like you got one started.
I love that idea. Maybe that's something we can chat about at our next Rhode Island Food Policy Council meeting for our waste food solution. I love that idea. So say that one again, like you.
Any thought to having a statewide student leadership group to advance these efforts?
Got that, Josh? Statewide. All right, so we will all look into that because there are a lot of organizations who are very supportive and are sitting here in this room. And I just wanted to see if anyone had last minute thoughts before we close out the session, and we have a little token of our gratitude that we will share in a moment. Let's just have a last big round of applause for these amazing leaders. Okay, and I am happy to have Melissa from 15-Minute Field Trips come and give you all a token of our gratitude for sharing your stories. And thank you so much, 15-Minute Field Trips, for sponsoring this, and to the Rhode Island College and the Compost Conference organizers for supporting this panel. This has been such an amazing experience. I hope y'all feel the same way. How cute, there's little polar bears on the card.
And I want to say that Melissa was very involved with our planning committee. Thank you, Melissa, again.
Thank you. Enjoy the day, everyone.